Thank you for watching the webinar. As you can see from the front screen, we're going to really talk about innovative ways that both sponsors and sites can drive their studies better, stronger, faster. That's going to be the goal of what we're going to focus on today. In terms of myself, again, my name is Zeke. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been with our organization Medics for coming up on 9 years. I work as our National Director of Life Sciences, mainly in the clinical research side. We have a lot of different services and industries that we help, but clinical has been where I've spent the majority of my 9 years. I've most of the time has been on the delivery and recruitment side, supporting hospitals, academic centers, site networks, CROs, sponsors, DCTs, you name it. When it comes to strategic solutions for staffing, scaling up and scaling down for studies. More recently, I've been on a lot of our solution side, really assisting our sales team and innovating new solutions at Medics to bring to our clinical research partners to navigate the wild world that this is. And so the hope today of what you guys should expect to get out of this is going to be actionable solutions that you can bring back to your team for the three key areas that we see both sites and sponsors separate themselves from others. Again, there's some sponsors and sites that we partner with that are just phenomenal. The clinical trial excellence that they establish and they hold themselves to is great. And we have really boiled it down through our research to three key areas of why. There's so many, right? And it's really hard to bucket things in clinical research because each one is incredibly important in their own right. But these are the three buckets that we feel like these three buckets that we feel like these companies do much better than others. Again, as a body of work, we worked currently and in the past with thousands and thousands and thousands of CROs, sponsors, and sites across the nation. And so we have hopefully a ton of good data and research to lean heavily on. In terms of an agenda, we're going to go through a quick introduction, which I'll hit on here soon. We're going to talk through recruitment and retention of staffing, study network, and vendor partnerships. And these three last bullet points, we truly do believe that this is what separates, again, amazing sponsors and sites from maybe ones that are struggling to achieve that clinical trial excellence. So the first one is going to be employee recruitment and retention. Your people and your culture are going to eat process and strategy and everything else for breakfast. And so we're really going to talk about hopefully what that core pillar should be within your organization. We're going to talk about your study network. Pretty broad, right? But there's so many different things that make up your study network, whether it's geography, referrals of patients, contract physicians that are consultants for certain therapeutic areas, potentially vendors, you name it. Your study network is key to conducting the right research. And then your last one that we're going to talk through are vendor partnerships. We're really going to put a magnifying glass on this one in terms of how to leverage this, because there's so much that's being left on the table when it comes to this, and great companies do this well. And so we do believe, again, that these three truly set you apart when it comes to running excellent clinical trials. We're going to look at this in two lenses, though. I think it's incredibly important to look at this in two lenses. The first lens is going to be from the sponsor side. We're really going to hopefully provide sponsors with actionable solutions that you can bring back to your team starting tomorrow, that you're able to implement to hopefully start driving one of these three, maybe two. Maybe you're in a spot where you need to drive three to better results. And our last one is going to be the sites. Our second one, I should say, is going to be our sites. We're going to look at it through the lens of sites. Some things are universal, right? Recruiting and retaining people, pretty much universal from sponsors to sites. And so some of these we're going to bucket together because collectively they can work on the same things. But in instances where there are some differences, we're certainly going to highlight sponsor versus site here when it comes to things you can bring back. And so with that being said, we're going to jump into the first one, which is employee recruitment and retention. So when we start there are so many threats to your organization when it comes to your people. There's threats, right? Around every single corner. And so being a good shepherd of your employees and making sure that they're protected from those threats and they stay with you and or they join you is more valuable than ever as we go into the second half of this year. And so there's many, but the four main ones that we see here at Medics. First one is career progression. People leave organizations when there's not a clear path for progression. Plain and simple. If there's not that carrot or that next step to take or whatever it might be to chase and give you that motivation and reason to put on your socks and shoes every day to show up and bust your butt for an organization, that's where we start to see individuals leave. It's one of the number one answers that we get when we ask, why are you looking to leave your organization? There is no room for growth. We always hear this person would have to leave for me to have any sort of growth here. Almost all the time when we talk to individuals that are disgruntled with their current employee, this is the first one. So this is a first threat. Your second one is just strictly competing companies. Companies are using technology and resources and vendors to steal your candidates. Competing companies are throwing money at the wall to come and poach your candidates. We hear it all the time. Sometimes there's not even anything wrong with what you got going on at your organization, but they still get poached because of the relentless pursuit of other organizations trying to vie for your candidates. This is your second one. Your third one is the changing marketplace. You go back several years ago, right? Several years ago, if you ask people, employees, what motivated them or what did they need their organization to have and or provide for them, what they said several years ago is very different today. Several years ago would have been a normal Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I want a good, competitive salary. I want strong leadership with strong tenure. I want stability. Really core things that certainly aren't lost on us today, but that is what people would say back then. Today, I want the ability to work remotely. I want certain more holidays or mental health days or different things off. Diversity inclusion within an organization is paramount for me. Philanthropy and what we do for the communities that we work in, again, the marketplace changes. And the organizations that don't change with it get lost. And so that's a third threat. And our fourth one is truly stability. I know I mentioned it as something from a while ago that people would want. It's still paramount today. Think about COVID, think about the volatility of our space, which is clinical research. Being able to show a forefront picture and vision to the individuals that work within your organization or ones that are going to come to your organization, that there is a sense of stability within your team is incredibly important, especially for younger individuals that are maybe starting a family, sole breadwinners, different things along those lines, going to be incredibly important. And so again, I could keep going here. There's so many different threats, but there are threats. And knowing that there are, not living underneath an umbrella of not thinking that there's individuals out there trying to steal your candidates or the competitiveness of individuals and companies out there when it comes to hiring is incredibly important. And so when you think about this, what are the repercussions of the threats? We're going to run through those repercussions because I want hopefully for you to feel them. Because I know that I can say that there's someone here that we feel, right? We're not perfect. But when you can really apply a feeling to this, an emotion to this, it hopefully will help you get a little bit of sense of fire to go and bring these things back as we will talk through solutions, bring these things back to your organizations to start to implement, to start to see this get better. So immediate impact of site turnover or position vacancies, right? Number one, allocation of resources away from other tasks. You lose a clinical research coordinator, you might have to ask your clinical research coordinator, maybe a data coordinator that used to be a CRC, a reg coordinator that used to be a CRC, to step in and help with patient recruitment. Maybe it's incredibly costly for you. When I say maybe, it always is, right? It could be costly for you for going back through the process of hiring. Staff burnout. If you're putting too much on everybody's plate and not backfilling that position quickly enough, you start to lose the room. You start to lose the patience of your team, and they might start to look elsewhere. Risk of study, continuity. You might have a break in that study. You might not have let's call it a patient rater that was about to do a rating scale for your neuro study. If they can't do it, you have to cancel that potential visit from that patient. That puts you pretty significantly behind and certainly has broader impacts for your sponsors and CROs that are partnering with you. But there are immediate impacts. These directly impact, again, our core conversation today, which is trial excellence. This certainly isn't the best way to do studies. It is not a strong way to do studies, and it certainly doesn't lead to doing them quickly. And so you have immediate impacts when it comes to site turnover. This is one of the main reasons that we see, again, organizations fail when it comes to conducting research properly and in a timely manner is here. But unfortunately, there's longer term impacts as well. And these are the ones that cripple an organization: missing recruitment numbers, negatively impacted patient experience. Again, those dreaded Yelp reviews or those Google reviews can completely sink the ship when it comes to a site and sometimes a small to mid-sized sponsor. Increased protocol deviations. If you're cutting corners, having too many people do too many things, potential out of window visits, all of these different things start to contribute. And again, to the last one, negatively impact a site sponsor relationship. Same for a site. If this is happening at a sponsor and you have a different CRA every single time that looks like they're learning your site newly every time. You might be a site that doesn't want to work with that sponsor, that CRO again. Vice versa, right? Sponsors. You might not want to choose a site again if you're starting to see, again, missed recruitment numbers, protocol deviations, all of these things, as I will continue to tie back throughout this conversation, impact trial excellence. And so, what can you do? What can you do as a sponsor and a site to be able to right this ship? And again, I know there's going to be people listening that are raising their hands saying, man, this is a problem. I was just in a meeting with my team. We were just talking about this. What can I do? Maybe there's some of you that are in a really good spot. This hasn't been an issue for you. No better time to start implementing proactive solutions. And when people are happy, letting them continue to be happy and putting in these different things to make a huge difference. And so there's 4 areas that we're going to focus on in terms of solutions that you can bring back. The first one is looking at market competitiveness and how your company fits within that. Doing a review of what y'all have going on at your organization is incredibly important. There's so many things that play into market competitiveness: salary, benefits, schedule flexibility, work format, opportunity for advancement. There's so many things that play into this, and there are small adjustments that you can make. Maybe you can add in pet insurance for your total portfolio of obviously your offerings of benefits. Maybe you can provide mental health days, 1 a quarter, to each of your teammates that you can talk to them about, whether it's retaining or recruiting. Maybe you guys got to look at cost of living adjustments in certain markets to actually give people a fair wage within the market that they're living in. There are so many different things as a leadership team that you guys can sit down and discuss to see how can I make us more competitive and make sure our people don't leave and make sure that we can hire people faster. So the first one is being honest with yourself and looking, are we competitive in the market? Your next one is strategize your recruitment. Strategize your recruitment. A lot of the times we just think if we put up a job posting, right? We put up a job posting, people are going to come to us. It just doesn't work. Here at Medix, only 5% of the candidates that we find, only 5% of the candidates that we find and we put with our clients come from a job posting. Isn't that wild? Only 5%. That passive way of recruiting and networking just doesn't work today. People want to be coveted. They want to be someone that is getting reached out to and told that they're great. It's just the world that we live in. And so using different means and ways of directing candidates to your organization and making them aware of obviously your presence and what you do at your site or your sponsor is incredibly important. Your website is of course the window into your organization. Taking a look at that and making sure it really does scream, come work here or stay here. Social media, have to get into social media, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn, an incredible way to let people know what it's like at your organization. Address reviews. We talked about the dreaded Google and Yelp reviews, right? Making sure that you address those reviews so organizations know that you are obviously, or I should say, people know that you are there listening, trying to get feedback, trying to implement changes if they're needed. And it's not just Yelp and obviously Google. There's different ways that you can look at Indeed and Glassdoor, and there's so many ways out there and in alleyways that people can learn about your organization. Making sure that you're proactive in all of them is incredibly important. And making it a priority and allocating resources. Number one area that we see organizations fail. They just feel like, okay, well, the site manager can maybe give 10 minutes a day to go in and finding candidates. Or hey, let's give our clinical research coordinator the reins on our Instagram account. Or let's have just the CEO, between all of the other responsibilities that they have, run talent acquisition. I can't tell you how many times at a site or even a small to mid-sized sponsor, you have somebody that's not good at the job doing the job because you want to save overhead, you have not prioritized it, and things fall between the cracks. And so making it a priority and allocating resources to this will pay off in spades. It might be the overhead of one additional salary, maybe a part-time salary for managing your social media account. I tell you that it will pay off in spades. Like, I've been doing it for a really long time. This is an incredibly important avenue for people to find out about you, and obviously company or people within the organizations to stay happy. Next one is invest in your leaders. You see that graphic on LinkedIn all the time. People don't leave companies, they leave leaders. It's true. They don't keep showing it and people keep talking about it if it wasn't, right? And so investing in your leaders is incredibly important. Taking time, energy, and resources into L&D, learning and development for your leaders. Maybe starting a book club within your leadership team, providing workshops for them to go and attend, budgeting for team building. Give your leaders a budget to go team build with their team, whether it's a happy hour, whether it's an event, whether it's whatever it might be, right? Providing that resource to make the job easier for them, incredibly important. And then again, provide them resources and structure. A lot of the times, again, young leaders are there to fend for themselves. They don't have weekly check-ins. They don't have goals listed out that they have to go hit. They're kind of flying blind. And so making sure that you actually have these resources and structure in place for every leader, not just maybe the site director, but maybe the CRC lead. People like to be measured. You might not think so, but people love to be measured because they love seeing the green. They love seeing themselves in the green, doing a good job. And then again, market competitiveness, incentivize it where you can. Make sure that they know that it's an important part of the job, and you'll see that it'll start to pay off. And then your last one is the data. The data, right? I always say outside of patient safety, health, and welfare, the second most important part in clinical research is data. Same goes for recruitment and retention. You can't get better unless you know your data. So I bet I'm talking hopefully to many of you, and I can ask you this. What are your retention numbers? How many people do you hire every quarter? What's your goal for hiring every quarter? I bet most of you sit there and say, man, I do not know. Just don't know. If I come across an A person, I'm going to hire them. I just hope people don't leave. I hope I don't lose one person a quarter, right? Hope is not a strategy. Learned that a really long time ago. Hope is not a strategy. You have to know your numbers. Know your numbers, set goals, then create a strategy to meet those goals and execute. And so if you find out that your retention number right now is you're losing 40% of your people every single year, what's the goal? Do you want to cut that in half and do 20%? Great. Set that goal. Then what do you have to do? What of the above things that I just discussed do you have to implement to create your strategy? And then what are the deliverables? What are you doing daily, weekly, monthly to make sure that you execute on them? It's one of the craziest things that I hear is that when you ask an organization that's coming to you for help, do you know what your retention number is or what your goal for hiring is? Almost all of them don't, which again can't get better unless you guys prioritize that piece of it and make it a core conversation within your C-suite executive leadership team about what you guys want to improve. This is one of the main reasons, again, that clinical trial excellence isn't achieved. And making sure that, again, you have the right people, they stay, and you hire the right people. I want to make sure that's a paramount for you. So that's our first kind of pillar of what we're going to talk through. Case study. We work with just about every academic medical center out there when it comes to the clinical research unit. Again, oncology, invasive cardiovascular devices, neuromodulation, you name it. Anything from observational, longitudinal, and interventional. We work with all different types of universities, academic medical centers across the nation. These are the groups that suffer the most. There is a ton of red tape, usually at these organizations. There's traditionally a significant amount of turnover at these because, again, a lot of the times this is a stopping spot for maybe people that are waiting to apply to med school or get into residency or go on and pursue a graduate degree. We see this a ton. You also see, again, sponsors and CROs poaching individuals from these organizations to go and run as a monitor for them on the oncology side. You see it traditionally a ton of employee burnout. Again, when you're working in an environment like this with incredibly complex studies and unfortunate situations for families and patients, you start to see a significant amount of employee burnout. And the internal talent acquisition's ability to speed to fill is historically low. Again, I'm painting with broad strokes. I'm sure there's a bunch of organizations out there that are great, but we approach this every single time. Every single time, this is traditionally what we see. Because again, there traditionally isn't a clinical research talent acquisition professional at a hospital. Right? One day they're looking at hiring a janitor and then a med surg nurse and then maybe a patient care technician and then maybe a accounts receivable person and then a clinical research coordinator, right? Their speed to fill is not good. And remember, how do they fill? By job postings. Historically, right? Academic medical centers and universities, there's so many positions open, they just post job postings. Remember, 5% of everybody that we found come from job postings. And so we traditionally see this at just about every academic medical center, maybe not all of the above, but we had one about 2 weeks ago. One that we had 2 weeks ago that had all of this. It takes forever to get a position approved by HR to allow us to obviously hire an employee. There's your red tape. Their turnover was significant. Their turnover was significant because they were understaffed. But again, they had the similar issues, great issues that all academic medical centers have, and that they have individuals that are ambitious that want to go on to further education and use this as a stopping spot. With all of this, they had incredible employee burnout. And then they had a talent acquisition team that were not experts in clinical research. And so again, what they told us is it takes us about 7 to 8 months to find a clinical research coordinator, they had 11 of them open. I mean, wow. Again, we were able to step in from a medic's perspective and use the solutions that we have to address all of these. We're able to address every one of these. Again, we have minimal red tape. Our turnover and how we approach our job, we find the right candidate for the right job every single time. Our employee burnout, of course, goes down when you have the right people in the positions and you're fully staffed. And our internal speed to fill a clinical research coordinator, for example, is about 5 days, 7 months versus 5 days. And so we're able to approach this and use our core business solutions, which is staffing at Maddox, to be able to address for this group that I mentioned, a couple of weeks ago, but certainly for hundreds of organizations, hospital systems, academic medical centers across the nation. Our next one is study network. So we talked about employee retention, recruitment as a core, again, piece of what it takes to drive clinical trial excellence. Now we're going to talk about your network. Your network as a sponsor of sites and vendors that obviously run your study. If you're a site yourself, what is your network of referral patients or geographical footprints that you have across the nation to obviously pull more recruitment numbers? We're going to talk about the study network as a whole. And again, one of the top reasons clinical trials fail is a lack of subject recruitment. One of the main reasons. And so if you talk about failing studies, it does not sound like obviously clinical trial excellence. So if we can address patient recruitment, and again, there's so many different webinars out there about addressing patient recruitment, whether it's getting engaged in the community or leaning on doctors for patient referrals or using technology. All of them amazing. Again, I am not discounting a single one of those things. We're not going to go that direction. We're going to talk about maybe a little bit of a bigger bucket, but we're going to talk about if you can address subject recruitment, what that is going to do for, again, clinical trial excellence. That's your sponsor or your site. And so when we make our way through it, obstacles for sponsors. There's numerous obstacles for sponsors when it comes to patient recruitment. Your first one is underperforming sites, sites that are not hitting the numbers they said they were going to hit. Lack of relationships with qualified principal investigators. We hear this all the time. Sponsors have a study, they want to give it, and they'll pay great money to give it to a board certified dermatologist, for example, and they can't find that dermatologist. Maybe lack of physical sites in clinical research deserts. There's so many areas that just don't have the opportunities to be able to participate in clinical research, but there's some amazing patients there from a diversity perspective, maybe a therapeutic perspective, whatever it might be, that would love to participate in that. The sponsors don't have an outlet to go and engage them, or just lack of qualified talent in remote areas, physical or DCT. Maybe you do have a site, but that site is maybe a family medicine practice and they don't have a neurologist to run your study. So you're so close, but man, it's taken us months to find a neurologist and I just can't find them. Several obstacles for sponsors, again, to highlight four here, several obstacles for sponsors that they have to navigate to be able to recruit participants for their studies. So what are some maybe potential solutions here? Again, the goal of this is to give you actionable solutions. That is hopefully the gist of this and hopefully the trend that you're feeling here. So these are your obstacles. How do we get past this for sponsors? First one is site support augmentation. Site support augmentation, meaning you're partnering with that site and it's called Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock, Arkansas, maybe they lost a clinical research coordinator, or maybe they're so strapped. They have one coordinator working on 8 studies, and you're just having that site underperform. They have a CRC and staff that are working on too many studies, and they cannot give your study the support it needs. Augment their staff. Hire a CRC for them that will work at the site underneath their principal investigator, underneath their IRB, but hire a staff for them. Pay for that staff. Give them a CRC. I've never heard a site say, no, please don't give me a CRC. They would love your support. And now you have a CRC at that site that you're paying for that is only working on your study and helping with that study. Imagine obviously the specialization and the discipline and the dedication they have to your study and how that's going to help. And so site support augmentation, help your sites out. I know we do it all the time. Recruiting at the site is a tough business. And so sometimes your sites are just going to be in a weird spot, or maybe they don't have the people they need, or they're strapped a little thin. Provide them sponsors with these individuals. Network. Strategize your networking efforts with sites. You can see this position that I took here. It's a little screenshot, Associate Director of Site Engagement. Make this a priority. Network with sites, not just sites that are conducting your research, but sites in general that you can add to your network. you can see that this company created a poignant effort and a strategized way of implementing a networking solution to make sure they have dedicated individuals that just engage with sites. An awesome way to obviously expand your network and make sure that you're getting the recruitment numbers that you need. And then invest in DCT. Decentralized clinical trials, it is always kind of an up and down conversation, especially on LinkedIn. But building a DCT strategy to catalyze your recruitment is incredibly important. DCTs have still some hurdles, right? Bringing medicines into people's homes has its own unique challenges, but is 100% doable. And we do it with sponsors every single day. And so building a strategy to bring the medicine to the people, right? Instead of having them have to come in or open a site or operationalize a site or some of that, again, cumbersome stuff. How can you create a strategy that you can use potentially a nurse to go provide an infusion in somebody's home? An incredible way that obviously takes all holds off when it comes to geography across the United States and gives you a whole new pool of individuals to recruit from. So great solutions that you can look at for a sponsor. For sites have their own obstacles, right? But before we get there, I forgot. We'll go through a case study. This was a fun case study. So there was a sponsor that had a phase two a psychiatric study. I think it was for bipolar disorder. I think it was bipolar disorder, but they had a phase two study that they were working through, and they had a site that was interested. They had an investigator that was excited, but they didn't have patient raters that were certified in that rating scale. They just didn't have them. And so they had so many sites and so many investigators across the nation, and a couple of them had patient raters, but most of them didn't. And so, again, you're almost at that finish line. You have these really uniquely diversified physicians and sites in so many amazing areas that you're going to be able to run this study pretty quick and recruit the participants. But it's incredibly hard to do if you don't have somebody that could dedicate the 2 to 3 hours per patient to do those rating scales. And so, a sponsor reached out to us. It was about 30 sites roughly. It was about 30 sites, and they asked if we could provide patient raters across the nation that would travel around for them to be able to assist. We said, of course we would. This is the idea of what site augmentation looks like. Your site doesn't have maybe a particular person. We can help augment. And so many other organizations, not necessarily just medics, but there's organizations that help you augment your site, augment these sites to run your study. And so we're able to provide 3 patient raters for the course. I think it was about 8 months long that traveled all across the nation to do these obviously patient rating skills for patients when they got enrolled. They're close to getting through the study. We're getting there, getting close to getting through the study, and it's running like a charm. Absolutely going off without a hitch, especially even going into the summer months. We have full coverage so far for what we're looking for and what they were looking for. And so, again, thinking outside of the box and augmenting potentially site-based staff is an incredible way to make sure that, again, underperforming sites or just lack of sites and creating those sites can help you with your recruitment numbers. Oh, and I had check marks. So obstacles for sites. So there's a ton of obstacles for sites as well. Again, I did my best to narrow these down to just 3. The first one is that you're understaffed. It's really hard to hit recruitment numbers if you're understaffed. Incredibly hard. So that goes without saying, pretty common sense. Second one is lack of relationships with specialty clinics to embed research within. Many times, right, for an obstacle for a site is that they keep getting reached out to about a derm study or a neuro study or maybe a endo study or an obesity study, and they have an amazing physician, but they're not a board certified dermatologist, maybe not a board certified cardio doc. They have the patient database, they have the sponsor that wants to give them, they have the experience running clinical trials. They just do not have maybe that specialist that will be able to assist them. Again, a hindrance when it comes to recruiting participants and working on those studies that need some additional support, or inexperience in just navigating new geographies. You have a sponsor that is huge in obesity medicine right now, and you want to go put a clinic within potentially Alabama or Georgia or Mississippi or somewhere along those lines where we can have a really robust database of individuals that might be prepared to participate in a study. You might have inexperience knowing what the trial landscape looks like in Alabama or knowing how to recruit participants in those areas. And so again, things that hinder, but for sites, if you can fix these, for sponsors to survive, you have to fix those. For sites, sometimes to survive, but a lot of the times, if you're able to capitalize on this, you can increase your revenue tenfold. You might be okay just doing what you're doing right now, but if you truly want to accelerate the revenue that you generate as a site, recruit more participants, if you address these solutions or these obstacles you're going to be able to drive a multiple when it comes to revenue. And so ways that you can do that. First one is making talent acquisition a priority. Talked about it before, talk about it again. If you can hire the right people for the right roles for the studies that you have in front of you, you're going to be in an incredibly better spot, right? You're going to be in such a better spot to be able to recruit participants and be in a good spot. I won't continue down that path because I've already hit on it for several minutes, but making talent acquisition a priority is not understated. Expanding your site network. If you're able to expand your site network, you should multiply by X amount the patients that you're able to recruit. And we should start to see an increase in certainly revenue. And especially if you do it the right way, profit. And so taking advantage of increasing your footprint, whether it's M&A and mergers and acquisitions, whether it's embedding your research into practices, there's so many different ways that you can do it. Expanding your site network is huge. And then partnering with DCTs. We know that one of the most difficult part for decentralized clinical trials, among many, is storing medicine, storing investigational product, and having potentially part of the study having to have a patient come on site, and the rest of the visits can be at home. There's certain areas that obviously DCTs have some hurdles to get over. But if you're a site and you want to partner with the DCT, it's a way to get a rip of each study participant. If you give them some space to obviously store the investigational product, potentially give them a little bit of space to conduct maybe the initial conversation and meeting with the patient. If you're able to get really good relationships with DCTs, you're going to start to see yourself get funneled into those a little bit more and have opportunity to make money there. And so one of my favorite solutions and case studies that I'll walk through here is expanding a footprint. So we have a solution here at Medix. We had a company that came to us that was highly leveraged in Florida, had a ton of practices in Florida that they conducted, obviously their clinical research studies, but they were stuck in Florida. They were really good at adding in Florida, right? They had incredible relationships in Florida, but man, how do we get outside of Florida? How do we start to find clinics that will do our research in Nevada, as you can see here, or New York, or California, or Ohio? How do we find these places? And so they leaned on us. They leaned on us. They gave us details of what they were searching for. We want 1 to 3 physician practices. We want a X amount of patient database. We want them to be in this therapeutic area. And we went and found them in only 2 quarters. They embedded their research within 4 practices across the nation. Talk about a way that you're able to, again, multiply your ability to recruit participants. One way is through geography. Obviously, having different pools to play from is incredibly important. And the beautiful thing is that the clinics that we found for them were clinics that have been in those communities for years, some of them 30 years. And so their patient database and the people's population's awareness of that facility as a leading facility within it was amazing. And so they've been running clinical research like crazy. These 4 locations already and starting to get their first studies, which has been a lot of fun. But again, ways that you can explore taking advantage of recruitment as a site and increasing your revenue is certainly understated. Last one that we'll go through is vendor partnerships. One that doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think. Coming from a vendor, I promise this will be unbiased, but vendor partnerships. There's so much more in those relationships and the ability to network with vendors that we have seen across the time doing this that has led to incredible gains from a sponsor and a site with how they're able to run their studies and achieve that excellence that we've been talking about. And so there's, of course, the old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I do think that this is true. I think that if you're able to leverage industry experts in certain fields within the clinical research landscape, you can go further and again achieve much more with those vendors. And so I obviously list a few vendors here. Hundreds of them, right? There's so many different vendors, and it feels like a different acronym that comes out for a vendor every single day in the clinical research space. But a few of them: staffing, marketing, lab services, real estate, CR software, patient recruitment, translational services. The list can go on and on. But these are the vendors that help you, whether you're a sponsor or a site, conduct your research. And so ask yourself, right? Just right in this moment, ask yourself, what's your relationship like with those vendors? Do you know their name? Do you know where they live? Do you know maybe their family? Do you know what they like? Do you know what school they went to? Do you know these things about your vendors? If the answer is no, and you truly treat them as vendors instead of partners, I bet there's an opportunity that you're missing. I bet there's a significant opportunity that you're missing. There's so many benefits when you turn a vendor into a partner. When you turn a vendor into a partner, the number one thing is a more tailored service and product. If you get to learn more about them and they get to learn more about you, that service or that product is going to be tailored to your exact needs, which of course, as you know, efficiency and effectiveness goes incredibly far when it comes to that relationship. Better pricing. I can't tell you how many times, again, coming from a vendor perspective, we have given significant discounts to individuals that we have longstanding relationships with. We know what they're going through, whatever it might be. When we have those relationships, we can get creative with our pricing. Expanding that service and product offering. A lot of the times you use one potential service from a vendor, they might have 11 others that you haven't gotten into a good relationship with, that maybe two of those are exactly what you're looking for. You already have a decent relationship, but you're not going to learn about them because they don't know anything about you and they don't know your business. And so you're out here looking for other vendors that do that when it's actually right in front of you. And so a lot of the times organizations have much more than expanded. I hear that all the time. I thought you guys just staffed clinical research coordinators. No, we do like 100 other things to help you run your sponsor or your site more effectively. And so again, expanded service offering if you get to really understand your partners and vendors. And then networking access. That's one of the coolest things, right? Again, as I said a million times, we have thousands of sites and sponsors that partner with us, thousands. If a sponsor, we're actually doing it right now. Oh, this is actually really cool. I won't drop any names. So we had a sponsor reach out to us, say, hey, we had a site fall through. We had a site fall through. We're in an incredible tough spot. Do you know of any practices in this therapeutic area that would be interested in running our study? They're now speaking with about 7 sites. We were able to quickly get on the phone, get all these sites, tell them about what the spot was. And they said, of course, we'd love to talk to the sponsor and see if we can help. That ability, again, doesn't happen if you're a vendor, certainly happens if you're a partner. And so, how do you turn your vendor into a partner? What are the ways that you can actually leverage to turn your vendors into a partner? First one, set up monthly meetings with your vendor to update them on your business. Let them know what's going right, what's going wrong. Let them know what kind of maybe new innovative ideas you're doing, any obstacles that you're seeing. Set up monthly meetings so you can update them on your business. You can also, of course, provide them feedback if there's anything in specific that you need to tell them about their service or something along those lines, of course. But their intimate understanding of your business is only going to help them better. Invite your vendor to your headquarters to meet in person. Break bread with them. That's what our CEO always says, right? If you break bread with somebody, that relationship starts to form. Get stronger immediately. Invite your vendor to headquarters. Show them around. Get them out for a lunch or a happy hour or something along those lines. Start that relationship early on. Set expectations up front regarding feedback, timelines, communication. Incredibly important. Hey, I'm going to tell you I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it by now. If that doesn't happen, this is going to happen, right? Making sure you are all on the same page. So you're not sitting there under your breath talking ill about each other because you guys didn't actually just tell each other what the actual timeline and communication was going to be. Happens all the time. And then pay your vendors on time. Goes without saying, relationships can get severed pretty quick if the expectation of when you're going to pay for obviously the service provided isn't met. And so one more case study, and then we'll round this out. We were partnering, I should say, with an incredible site network, a site network that is doing amazing work. And to expand their footprint, they really, really wanted to get into different therapeutic areas. Specifically, this one was neuro. They really wanted to get into the neurology space. Neurology is booming right now. Everybody wants to do it, so on and so forth. And so they said, we're having an incredibly hard time, but we need these board certified neurologists that can be on our 1572s to even secure these studies. And so traditionally, net payment terms for something along these lines, it can vary, but in the instance that we had with them was 30 days. You have to pay us for our service within 30 days. But as you all know, putting a doctor on a 1572, you don't actually get that study to feasibility, SIV, so on and so forth, to much later down the road. And so they called us and talked to us. Yeah, they actually picked up the phone and talked to us and said, hey, can you work with us? We've been working together for an incredibly long time. It's really tough for us to justify cost in 30 days because we're not going to be close to obviously at a point where we're going to secure a study and start recovering our funds here. We said, of course, we'd be happy to. Let's take that payment, and instead of 30 days, we'll break it up into 3 separate payments, and 30 and 60 and 90. Not a problem at all. We'd be happy to help. Imagine that, right? Like if you have vendors that would be willing to do this with you, they won't if your relationship stinks, right? You have to create that partnership. We had no problem. It was no additional cost to them, no big issue for us. We were able to help this, and it really gave them the flexibility that they needed to continue down this endeavor of course, opening up that therapeutic area. And again, lead to trial excellence. They're able to get a better product from their vendor that, of course, is going to help them in the long run. And so, in closing, right, again, highlighting the clinical trial excellence piece, those are the three that we see over the last 9 years that I've done this. Individuals, or I should say companies, sponsors, and sites that are amazing at recruiting and retaining staff, those that have extensive study networks, and then those that, of course, have incredible partnerships with their vendors. Those are the ones that run in really, really, really fast and traditionally have incredibly strong studies. And so I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you all today. As you can see here, here's my information. If you want to talk, chat, network, I'd be more than happy to. But I appreciate you guys sitting here and listening. Thank you so much.